When I started, speaking out and putting stuff on my website, Fetzer hated that, and Fetzer was trying to control me, which is a losing battle. And Morgan Reynolds and I ended up resigning from Fetzer's club. That was August 17th, 2006. But then we're free then to really cause some trouble. That's when I really started working on my website in that first big series. And it was the 23rd of August, we put up that paper, about talking about what Jones was overlooking. And then we went ahead and got into it about, researching the topic. But it was because now we were out of the picture, they needed us in the picture. And it was in December when Jones and Fetzer had their divorce, and it was Judy Wood's fault. But Morgan and I were long gone by then. But they had to make people think that we were still, in the club, so they could have this conflict with us. All right, and then I continued doing my own thing, and they needed to control that more. And then I filed a request for corrections to NIST. And 3.5 weeks after that, Stephen Jones, Richard Gage, and so forth filed their request for corrections to NIST, but it didn't contain anything about any thermite evidence, which was interesting. And that's also when the door of AE911'CLUB opened. And it was in their founding laws. Anybody connected to Judy Woods, he put an S at the end then, was banned from the group. It was clear what the group was all about. I was an engineer, so they had to have, engineers in the title. And Stephen Jones at that point kind of handed the baton over to Richard Gage so that he could duck out the back door. So then Richard Gage could say, well, I'm not a scientist, so he wouldn't be held accountable for the statements he was making. Stephen Jones wouldn't be in the forefront, so, he didn't have to be accountable to anything. But then I filed my key tam case. That was in April 2007, following the request for corrections. The request for correction was my notifying, government agency about the fraud in the NIST report. And I, being the first person to do that, qualified me for a key tam case. So there was fraud in that, and especially NIST even helped, because they wrote back and said, oh, we didn't know about that. So it shows that I was the first one to notify them. And anyway, the case went on, and the lower court said he wasn't, something to the effect that he wasn't going to hear a case about who shot JFK or what landed on the moon. Did he realize what this case was about? He also put this case in, combined it with one about bombs in the building. And you can prove that bombs in the building is bogus. So therefore my case would get thrown out, and which is ridiculous. And also something about planes. Well, the reason why Morgan and I kept those things separate was so that one wouldn't get spilled over onto the other one. So if people had emotional problems with the plane issue, they couldn't, it didn't affect mine. Mine had nothing to do with planes. Yet they combined Morgan's with mine as well. So when I appealed mine to the next court, Morgan didn't appeal his, so they couldn't combine it. And those judges, the Court of Appeals, even acknowledged in the written decision that they were ignoring the law to dismiss the case. That the law applied to my case. I'm speaking of FERA, Fraud Enforcement Recovery Act. And so we then appealed to the Supreme Court. And when you have an ongoing case, you can't talk about it, because you're supposed to be handling stuff in the courts, not on the street. And so we didn't want to do anything that would conflict with, the judges making the decision. So we weren't talking about the case. But the Supreme Court decided not to hear the case. They don't even have to say why, just they don't feel like it, they don't have to hear it. But we submitted it to the Supreme Court just to show that we went as far as you can go. Anyway, that decision came out at a particular time. Now, this is where you and I were talking last time. Few people realize the events. This is the end of January 2010. So now I'm going to be free to talk about the case. And imagine the shock and awe of this material. So the opposition has to blunt that shock and awe. And suddenly everyone saw this stuff all over the place about never before seen images newly released by Freedom of Information, ABC News, and all this stuff. Those are all pictures on my website.
Yeah.
And even Fetzer put them up on his blog. Here, never before seen images. Where one of those images he stole it from my website and used it as the cover image on the DVD to his conference. That was in 2007. So those pictures have been around a while, and but also at the same time, people. This is the big thing. People probably wondered why on earth they were told to, through all the truther groups, they're told to rent a room at a hotel in their town and for a press conference and be at the microphone ready to answer questions by the press. People probably wonder what on earth that was about. They had them in Seattle, they had them in San Francisco, D.C., New York. Various cities had their press conference, but no press was there. But that was the 18th, I think, of February 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why on earth would they do such a thing?
Why?
Well, if I could now start talking about the evidence, they wanted to be able to trample it as fast as they could. And so they had all sorts of people ready to talk to the media. If I opened my mouth, it would be trampled by any truther out there. It blunts the shock and awe. If somebody hadn't seen much about 9/11 before and then came upon my work, my gosh, it would blow the doors off of it.